is the Castellum Divisiorum, which means dividing tank or reservoir. Now, it's at the highest point of the town. That's so the water could run down on into the rest of Pompeii. The water arrived from the aqueduct through this hole, passed through a coarse filter here, and then this line marks a finer screen to get the impurities out. But the really clever bit is over here. The water divides into three. We've got the channel for the public baths, public buildings. Over here, we've got the channel for private houses for the rich people. But the really important one is down the middle. This is the public fountains. So we've got the status pretty clearly marked out. But the way it worked was that the public fountain system was always prioritised. So if the water ran low in a dry season, they would still have water running to the public fountains because they could cut off the other supplies. It's a brilliant system. Now the pipes from the Castellum Divisiorum fanned out all over Pompeii, taking advantage of the slope downhill. But of course the water built up a huge head of pressure, so it was rushed up to the top of towers at street corners where there was a tank at the top. That reduced the head of water. The water came back down lead pipes, and many of those lead pipes seem to have come from the Roman lead mines of the province of Britain. The water left behind this extraordinary calcium carbonate deposit as well, which you can still see today. From here the water rushed on into the public fountain. The system was called constant offtake. It never stopped flowing, and on out into the gutter. If you were really rich, you could afford your own private supply from this system. Before the aqueduct came to Pompeii, private houses, even public baths, had to make do with the water they could pull up a bucket and chain from deep underground wells. But once the aqueduct had been installed, everything changed. Pompeii could have a number of large public bathing facilities, fountains at every street corner, and wealthy house owners could afford lovely garden pools like this one in a townhouse. This is just one Roman town. Just imagine what it was like across the whole of the Roman Empire with systems like this, providing water constantly for their populations.
Well, Guy, anybody can understand your enthusiasm for that extraordinary water system. Now, here we are by a fountain in Herculaneum. How long did we in Britain have to wait for running water like this?
It's not until the 17th century that London gets a water system anything like this. You have to go until the 19th century and into the 20th before the rest of Britain gets anything like an organised public water supply.
Extraordinarily impressive, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Guy, the earthquake that hit Pompeii and Herculaneum in 62, that was 17 years before the eruption of Vesuvius. Now, what damage did that do you think, to the water system?
We know that it wrecked the water system. A lot of pipes were broken up. Some of the houses had to go back to collecting water in tanks, for rainwater, and using wells. And when the eruption appears in 79 AD, the Pompeians and the Herculaneums are still repairing the system. It's all work in progress.
So it can be quite a tough time being a Roman, even so, can't it? Now, okay, so Guy, we know where the water comes from. It comes from the mountains. It comes through this incredible system. Where does it go to? Well, here's probably the answer, presumably the answer: the drains. Now, here we have a drain in the street here, presumably taking the rainwater away and anything that was spilled over from the fountain, if any of Guy's wonderful engineering went wrong. Where does it go? It goes down to the sewers, and that's where it gets fascinating. And the team here at the moment are working on what really happened down there in the sewers. How did they work? And they found some very mystifying tunnels indeed.
Gosh, Nemo, this place is stunning. Beautiful tunnels.
It's a vast tunnel network. The scale of it really took us by surprise when we first came down here. The main tunnel is over 80 meters long and as much as 3.5 meters tall in some places. It's a magnificent structure. The ceilings and walls are beautifully preserved.
So what is this place?
At first, we thought this huge structure was used to empty the public swimming pool. But in fact, when we started investigating the site, we found out it could have had a completely different purpose. We now think it could have been used as a massive cistern because of the rounded walls. They're typical of Roman cisterns.
Mimo, I noticed all these holes. What are they? What were they used for?
They're drainage holes that run down from latrines in the houses above.
So does that mean it's definitely a sewer?
It was undoubtedly used as a sewer, but it's got some very unusual features. It's a sealed system. We haven't found any outlet to the sea. It's more like a gigantic septic tank.
Is that surprising? Do Roman sewers normally empty in the sea?
Roman sewers nearly always drain into the sea, but the organic remains we found here made us certain that these tunnels were used as a sewer. We asked Professor Mark Robinson to come and analyze the material.
Mark, is that what I think it is? Roman poo?
Yes, indeed. It is fossilised 2,000-year-old Roman excrement, which has come down from the latrine shaft from the kitchen, is discharged down the wall, and calcium phosphate has been precipitated, preserving organic material.
So what are you hoping to learn by studying this area?
Well, the most interesting material will be the accumulations that have built up at the base of the sewer, which will have preserved organic remains from the sewage. Will also have various artefacts, such as potsherds, which were thrown down the latrine shaft.
Well, now, Mark, you've had the enviable task of scrabbling it down around it, all that waste, a good word for it, isn't it, down there in the sewer. What did you find? What did you pick up?
I've taken some samples, and yesterday I sieved through them, and here are some of the results. First of all, waste from the kitchen thrown into the latrine shaft. Group of seashells here. These were in the uppermost deposits. They're perhaps the last meal prepared in the kitchen of that house before the eruption.
Yeah, so there we are on that August day in AD 79, and these are the very shells that contain the fish.
Yes, two sorts of scallop, limpet and tellini.
Extraordinary.
Also some other kitchen waste, broken wine glass, small cup. Here's part of an oil lamp, and most interestingly, it's got part of an eagle showing on it. The wing there, the head with the eye on it.
Oh, those are lovely, aren't they? And that's just people chucking stuff down the waste. Rather like, I suppose we might possibly chuck it down the waste in the kitchen, but we probably put it in the dustbin. But that's their dustbin.
Yes, yes. Right. But of course there's also the material from the sewage itself, material that has passed through the human digestive tract. So to start off with here, and I have to focus it, small semi-digested bone fragments. Here
whatever is that?
We have the claw of a bird. Now,
someone eat that?
Yes, yes, indeed. I had an unfortunate experience in Hungary with bird's foot stew. But the Romans certainly ate little birds.
What's it taste like, this bird's foot stew?
I found it very unpleasant. But here's something else the Romans swallowed. Small fish bones. They made a type of fish sauce called garum, and it contained small fish. And if you eat it, you will eat the bones.
How tasty do you think that was, Mark?
Very, very pungent. Perhaps a liquid version of Bombay duck.
Right.
Over here, something else rather strange, at least strange to us to eat. This is the spine of a sea urchin. Given that somebody swallowed it, I assume it was prickly when eaten and might even have been prickly at the other end as well.
Now, you, of course, these are things you've dug out in the last 24 hours or so, aren't they?
Yes, no, sieved out and have dried.
You're quite pleased with this? I mean, do you think you've discovered a great deal about Roman diet this way? Yes,
yes, we're showing that there's a rich Mediterranean diet. So onto the fruit remains. Now, you might think it's strange that they're preserved. You might expect them to decay, but they're preserved by the calcium phosphate mineralisation. So this is a cherry stone.
Yes.
An apple pip there. And a group of grape pips, and large numbers of fig pips.
So we're looking at quite a sophisticated diet here. I mean, how would you describe it? I mean, overall, what do you think how would you quite like to have been in one of their restaurants, having a good tuck-in?
I'm not sure I would have liked the public health aspect, but the food itself is good and varied.
Not the bird foot stew, clearly.
I wouldn't like the bird foot stew. Indeed, the public health aspect.
Now, what have we got here?
This is a grain weevil, something called Cytophilus, very probably infesting the cereals used to make their bread. Has been ground up and has passed through the human digestive tract, and large enough bits of eye to be mineralised.
Right.
Also, of course, they would have been plagued by flies. These are latrine flies, puparia of latrine flies. These would hatch out in the latrine, and when the lid was lifted up, a cloud of small flies would fly up to the light.
All this stuff 2,000 years old. Extraordinary. It's a snapshot in time.
Yes.
And you've got one final
Right,
pièce de résistance for us. Whatever is that?
Right, that is the mandible, the lower jaw of a house mouse. Very likely a rodent pest infesting the house, accidentally fell down the latrine and met an unpleasant end.
Well, Mark, that's extraordinary. Thank you very much. So we know what their last meal was in Pompeii and Herculaneum, but what about what they were doing just in those last few minutes before they were overwhelmed by the volcano? Join us in a minute to find out.
Welcome back. Imagine an ordinary morning in August 79 AD. Some fresco painters in Pompeii are at work in a large house as Vesuvius's basement begins to rumble. To them, it's just another day. They have no idea what is about to happen. Peter takes up the story with one of Italy's most experienced Roman archaeologists at an ongoing excavation the public have never seen.
Well, here we are walking up the street of Plenty in Pompeii, and I'm with the professor who's in charge of this whole section of brand new excavation. It's Antonio Veroni, Professor Veroni. Now tell us, what are we going to see now?
We're going into the house of the chased lovers. First, you can see the street we have excavated. Come on in, please.
Thank you. Right.
We stopped digging for the time being. See, this is a door that goes through to a house that hasn't been excavated yet. We won't know for many years what's behind that door.
You could find treasures, you could find bodies, you could find a family life in there. You just don't know.
Knowing that this door connects you with a world that's 2,000 years old is very humbling.
Fantastic. And over here?
This site is linked with the block of the chased lovers. That's an ongoing dig. I'll show you some of its most interesting elements.
You can show us that now.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
This is the house of the painters at work, which is partially excavated. I'll show you the main room, which gave the name to the house. This is the party room. We can still see the marks left by the scaffolding that was used by the painter to reach the upper part of the frescoes.
So this is the stand on which the painters were at work on the very day the volcano erupted.
Sure, on that very moment. The young painter has just plastered these two walls, and the plaster is still soft. So the falling lava stones leave these marks on the wall. And then there's the next painter, the master painter or Pictori Magnarius, who's painting the main picture. It is possible to see the mark of a wooden shelf upon which the spots of paint were left. We found these pots on the floor, as well as other tools.
These are original paints. This is what they actually used.
The green, the Egyptian blue, the yellow, and the black.
And what kind of paint is this? What type of paint?
They're all mineral paint, except for the black, which is vegetable. These colors are painted onto damp but firm plaster. So, when the plaster dries, the paintings are fixed.
So tell us, Antonio, about this central fresco.
Sure, the painter has just finished drawing a sketch with yellow ochre in order to give a 3D effect.
in modo da dare già il senso delle tre dimensioni.
You can see the fold of a man's gown, a foot, and a leg.
Un piede, una gamba. Vengono le prime scosse dell'eruzione.
But suddenly,